Honey, look at those beautiful clouds.
Those aren't clouds, Daddy. Those are chemtrails.
Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
Put the rumors to rest. Gotta help the children and give it the best can. Send around and be blind to the fast can. Taking no more, how can they relax? I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you cry. I just wanna see you smile. Baby, I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you die. I just wanna see your smile, baby. Living on earth, we must respect the earth. Human and animal, we all deserve the right to peace and opportunity. But nowadays we are blind, we can't see.
This is Greg Palin coming to you with Russ Tanner today. We've been trying to reach Dane, and he's doing after about 20 minutes today. And so we, Russ and I, get to play host today, which it's not surely not going to be as interesting as having Dane here live, but there's a lot of things that we need to talk about. There's a lot of people that need to be reached and touched, and Russ and I were just talking about potential topics because we've been trying to get through with Dane, and I think one of the big things that I wanted to hit on today, and I wanted to mention Steve and give him a shout out up in Alaska with the things that he's doing. He sent me some pictures this week of billboards that he's putting up, I guess along his busy highway up there in Alaska. He's got a pizza place that he's putting up GeoEngineering and Global Skywatch messages. One of them I remember was kind of funny. This is not cornstarch that they're spraying in the sky. And you just got to hand it to a guy like that that's willing to write GeoEngineering watch with his own hand on his pizza boxes, putting out messages and changing his letters and is putting out creative messages to all the people that go by. If we could get somebody doing that in every city across the country, boy, what a huge difference that would be. It's just so nice to see a guy that's that motivated to save his fellow man.
Don't mind the ringing. Don't mind the ringing, dear Greg. We're just trying to get.
Yeah, no problem. We're still trying to get through to Dane. But again, it's so impressive to run into a guy like Steve, and he's sent Dane and I some pizza boxes and T-shirts, and just a super fella, and so refreshing. Because I hear so often, what can we do? You know, what can I do as a single individual? And there's so much that people can do, and Steve is just a poster child for what can be done for not a lot of money if you just got the desire and the ambition and the creativity. There's no telling how many people this guy can reach, and I tend to go to gun shops all over the Southeast, no matter where I am, because that crowd seems to be quite open to the message. At least they're aware of what's going on, maybe not necessarily with geoengineering, but with other issues. And they seem much more easy to to get them to get the idea of geoengineering when they look up and put two and two together, because they already know their constitutional rights are being threatened. And I go and hand out Dane's DVDs and leave large piles of brochures and hand them out while I'm in there. And if there were just a lot more people willing to make that effort, I think that we could gain critical mass and hopefully put enough pressure on our congressmen. And I ran for Congress, and I know the kind of mentality we're dealing with in Congress. These guys won't touch anything that's not popular and isn't mainstream and doesn't have a world of scientific academic research behind it, which this topic does. But again, the mainstream hasn't jumped on it, and it's just really, really nice again to see what Steve is doing up there and making that effort. And Russ, obviously, with his website, and Dane, while he's not here, God knows he needs a shout out, because I talk with him, and people need to know how hard this is. Just the idea of, I'm trying to build a cabin, trying to run a company. I just got done unloading a truckload of wood about 3 seconds before I ran in the office to grab this phone call to be on the radio with Russ. And Dane, confides in me that, it's easy to get burnt out. It's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but yet we need to push forward. And Russ, so many people in the activist community say so many good things about you that I've heard, and it's just a real pleasure to be working with both you guys and trying to help you as much as I can. And I'm going to turn it over to you and see what you've got to say in that regard.
Well, likewise, Greg, I've heard a lot about you, and I appreciate all that you do. And I've been, I got into this because I suffer from it. The first time I experienced this was in 2003, and I saw all these lines in the sky out west when I was at a convention, a business convention that I used to go to, and I was just really confused because I know that these type of engines do not emit trails. And I was like, what is all this going on in the sky? In 2005, they started spraying the town that I lived in every single day, and I started having immediate health problems, and the smell and the taste that you talked about before. Had more and more people call me about that who are experiencing that as well. And so I got involved in this because I feel like I have to, because my health has been so decimated by the chemicals that they're spraying. I have rapid inflammation, and I've heard many people who have children or their parents or even that they themselves are having trouble breathing. They have respiratory issues. They have frequent illnesses, and so I just couldn't. I could not sit still and be quiet about this at all, and that's why I got involved, because I think we have to speak up. We have an obligation to do this, and for those who want some ideas about what they can do. I mean, all the people who are listening to this right now, most of everybody who's listening right now at this moment probably are very educated about this already, and know about the geoengineering issue. And, of course, the government and the mainstream media, which are all really controlled by the same entities. I mean, when you control massive business, huge international corporations, the first thing you want to do is control information, and then you want to control politics. And if you can do those two things, then you have everything. And we're already there. And so with the coordination of all of these entities working together, we have all kinds of disinformation being spread. They're trying to tell us that this geoengineering might happen in the future, that scientists are debating about it. And really, this is just a disinformation tactic to make people believe that it's not happening right now when in fact it is. And it's amazing to me how people in the public cannot grasp that people who are in industry, because that's who runs our governments today in all the countries. This is fascism. These large industrial, very powerful industrial families run the government quite literally. When you control media, you can determine who gets elected, and when you control who gets elected, then you own your politicians, and so on and so forth. And after you do this for decades, you gain tremendous amount of control. And that's exactly where we find ourselves today. And the typical person that you try to tell about this sometimes runs into barriers because they're hearing on Wikipedia or mainstream news that these are condensation trails. And they can't wrap their mind around the idea that there would be a coordinated lie in textbooks, on television, in media. They just can't wrap their head around that. But the reason they can't do that is because they've never taken the time to understand the structure of the system that we live under. And I believe that that's absolutely critical, because otherwise people just can't get their head around that there's something that's so well coordinated among so many different entities, from those who publish textbooks to those who run large corporations to mainstream media and so on and so forth. So I really think that that's part of educating the people about the spraying, is to help them understand the nature of the system that we live under. And I do have some ideas I'll offer in a few minutes about some creative ideas about what you can do to help expose this to the public. But what are your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I mean, the classic definition of fascism is government and business being joined at the hip. And when I ran for U.S. Congress several years ago, I saw this. I mean, I did the research as to how much money Hank Johnson takes from the military-industrial complex. I mean, literally, this is a guy that felt that Guam would tip over if you built a military base on it. I mean, that made national news, and that's part of the reason I ran against Hank Johnson, because I think we need better leadership. And I did a lot of research into where his money comes from. I mean, it's the military-industrial complex. The guy takes, $475,000 a year in contributions from the military-industrial complex, and then we wonder why these politicians don't vote the will of the American people. They're voting the will of the corporations, because that's where the money comes from. And they say the things they need to say during election time, and then they go back to work for the corporations, who are the ones that give them the money to get elected. And it's really disappointing. And seeing that process up close was more than really I ever wanted to see, as to how really corrupt and sick our system is. I mean, I've come to the conclusion even that some of these candidates are being paid to run against the incumbents. So it looks like we have, Burger King and McDonald's, your two choices, Republican and Democrat, just so Hank continues to get in and get in again and get in again. And business continues as usual, and nothing really changes. And that's we do need people that are willing to tell the truth, bare minimum, that aren't working for the corporations and are willing to risk their life. I mean, that's really what it entails. My girlfriend was, scared to take the dog out to the kennel at night, because you're running against, organized crime, sadly. And but again, somebody has to pick up the gauntlet and run with it, and be willing to take whatever risk, like Dane is taking with this issue. I mean, it's dangerous, and it's probably dangerous to help him, but it's even more dangerous to do nothing, because we are breathing this crap every day, and it's filling our lungs, and it's probably affecting our thinking and our reasoning and everything else. And it seems to me it's just a matter of time before we're going to reach the point of no return. And I see it with my Facebook, Russ. I didn't sleep at all last night. I was so aggravated. I put up a post in regard to, and you and I were just talking about it, Russ, about how America's churches are pledging their allegiance to the New World Order. And this video, and I really would, no matter what your religious persuasion, people should look at this video. It's on my congressional Facebook page, Greg Palin, the number 4, Congress. That's Greg, G-R-E-G, Palin, P-A-L-L-E-N, the number 4, Congress. It's my latest post. And very interesting how the government, whether it be DHS or CIA, is getting to these pastors and getting them to preach Romans 13 and standing down. And it's just really sickening. And I made a very scathing comment. It might be one of the last comments there. And I watched it all day, between working my butt off yesterday, I watched that comment, and nobody liked it. And that's very unusual because usually when I go on a rant, I get a lot of likes. And then at 11 o'clock last night, I'm like, something's not right here. So I started contacting people that I know are supporters of mine, and they said they hadn't even seen the post. So bottom line is, within minutes after that, likes started pouring in on that. And so it just tells me that they're censoring what I'm putting up in comments. And then when they see that, wow, this guy's actually going to contact his supporters to see if they've liked it or whether they even saw it, and everybody said, no, we haven't seen it. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm starting to get likes at 11 o'clock last night after things been up for 12 hours. That just really, I can think of some choice words to describe how it affects me. But bottom line, I was very disappointed and I was very aggravated. It's not the first time this has happened, but I guess my point is, in a roundabout way, is we don't have a lot of time before the noose is going to continue to tighten. The screws are going to continue to turn to where we may not even have the right to use Facebook. We may not have the Internet. We may not have our cell phones with the kill switches that they're engineering into them now. And it's just really sad. And I hope people go and watch the video on my Facebook page, the last video I posted. And I'm not trying to, I get nothing out of my Facebook page except a lot of disappointment and encouragement to see people waking up. And I don't know if you've seen that video, Russ, but I hope you'll look at it also.
Sure, I'll check it out. And I want to invite people while we're talking. I agree with you. There's so many things I would love to talk about. I mean, the whole Romans thing. There's two different Greek words, ecclesiast and dunamis. And dunamis is where we get our word dynamite from. And that Romans verse is actually taken out of context. If you look at the original languages, what it's saying is that God institutes governments in Ecclesiastes. But when they're dunamis, the power of governments are the ones. It's more complicated than this, so I'm kind of paraphrasing. But the dunamis are the ones that go against what is good, and they are ultimately punished for what they do. And people, the churches take a very simplistic look at the Bible because they don't really understand the deeper issues here. And I hope people look that up. In fact, I should write an article about that. Then they'll understand that verse is really being misused. But nevertheless, I do want to invite people to call in. The calling number is 718-717-8296. It's 717-829-6296. And if you happen to be listening to this stream other than UCY TV, I don't know if it's streamed other places, but you can go to the website UCY, the letters UCY.tv, and select from the programs GeoEngineering Watch, and that's where you can get on our chat room and talk with us there. And I'd also want to offer some suggestions about what people can do to wake up people in their community. You often have to be gentle with people. You have to be tactical and tactful. But this is the largest crime against humanity in human history. Weather is being engineered. Dane talks about this all the time, off the coast of California, which is taking the moisture out of the air, so they're in drought right now. And they are destroying the economic and the agricultural infrastructure of this country. This is being done intentionally. This is what's been done to other countries as well by the industrialists who have come in, destroyed the country, and then bought up the land and the industry for pennies on the dollar, and they're rebuilt, and then they get rich from it. And this is what's happening in the United States right now. Now, you have a document, and I love talking about this because there was a document published through the Air Force that is called Owning the Weather by 2025, and a lot of people who are awake and aware have heard about that. But what people have to understand is that is very sophisticated disinformation. That document does exactly the same thing that the geoengineers are doing today. The document claims that there will be weather control technology developed by 2025, they hope, but there's weather modification technology that was developed in the 60s, and it was perfected in the 70s and is already in use now. Widespread, very effective, very refined, highly effective weather manipulation technology already in place. And a document like Owning the Weather by 2025 is meant to mislead the public into thinking that we just don't have that level of technology yet, so they just can't wrap their head around the idea that it's already happening. And this is the exact same thing that geoengineers do today, is they say, we're thinking about geoengineering. This is something we're considering. And the rhetoric continues and continues while they do it right now and destroy your lives, destroy your health, destroy your countries around the world, destroy your land, and destroy animal life and everything else that goes on around it. Now, I want to invite, if anybody wants to call in, I do see phones ringing here. I want to see if we can add someone to the group call. We have a caller who just called in. I'm trying to juggle several things here because Dane's not here. Are you still with us, Greg?
Yep, sure am.
Okay, great. Caller just called in with your phone number that ends in 62. You're with us. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, Ross, how you doing? Good afternoon. This is Ty again from East Texas. I've been calling in the past couple of weekends.
Hey, Ty, how's it going?
Hey, Ty, good to have you with us again.
Hey, y'all know I follow the show, big fan of the show, and I just appreciate y'all. I guess Dane's not with us today. I've got some, I just want to give y'all some updates. You know, I definitely keep my eyes and ears open out here in Texas. As you guys very well know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on out here as far as the aerosol injections, and it's not too hard to pay attention to it. I got a couple of things that I'd like to go over. First of all, to all the listeners, you know, I just want to underline the importance and seriousness of this topic. You know, a lot of people might not think that, you know, this is absolutely one of the biggest things that, you know, we need to be dealing with right now. It's absolutely serious. Have you ever experienced something maybe 10 years ago, and then after a while, you know, after the years pass, you might go back and think, that might not have been so strange, or it could have been this, or it could have been that. To me, this whole geoengineering thing is kind of like that, except for every morning when I'm awakened by the sound of jets, then I look up at the sky and I see the disbursement. It's just a grave reminder that, yes, this is happening. This is our new altered reality. It's not something strange that happened to me a long time ago. This is something that is happening every day. Where I live at, you know, you can slowly see the programs being ramped up, and if you follow the science on it, you know, that's basically what they do. You know, they ramp up the amount of tons that they put into the stratosphere. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say they, you know, as people have to realize that this is a slow kill. People are in the middle of right now, you know, a filthy factory, and people who are in filthy factories and breathe filthy air over a period of time will become sick, their organs will become destroyed, and they eventually die. And that is what's happening. And I know that after the spraying started, in the area I live, so many people started getting sick. Aneurysms, strokes, cancers. They started getting these illnesses so quickly that people were going, oh, my God, why is everybody getting sick? Why is everybody getting sick? And I try to tell many of these people, and they're like, well, I don't know anything about that. It seems like you would hear about that on the news. And then you have to explain to them why they don't hear about it on the news. And they're like, well, that just sounds kind of far out. Well, the only reason it sounds far out is because people don't understand how the structure works. These people who have taken over these industries and media didn't do it yesterday. They've done it over decades of time. And so it's hard for some people to get their mind around. But fortunately, people are waking up, and they are realizing that this really is happening, and this is the largest crime against humanity, and people are living in a filthy factory, and we know that your lifespans are being shortened because the amount of damage that particulates do to the body that you breathe are proportional to the smallness and the quantity. And I will tell you that they are very dense, and they are very, very many, very, very small. And this is adding to the intensity of what's going on and how much lifespans are being shortened. Ty, what else do you have for us?
Well, just I want to comment on what you had to say. I've got two teenage boys and three smaller children. And so our family is really a good kind of detector of, some things that happen to somebody might not happen to somebody else. Well, in the past 5-6 years where we've lived at, some of my boys have been barraged with nosebleeds, allergy symptoms when there's no allergies in the air, headaches, constant headaches. And I never really kind of connected the dots. So I'm like, wait a minute, I've got 5 different kids and we're constantly having different symptoms. So my family is a really good detector of, different things that can be going on. And all of these things that happen to me and my kids are kind of attest to that. I've been sending some photos today. The sunset, you can see the trails being put out during the day, but the sunset is really obvious. Sometimes the sky looks like a parking lot, with all the different colors of the grease. And I think it's interesting because one of the reports from one of the GeoEngineers said that one of the benefits would be a gorgeous sunset. But it's not
natural. It's not
natural, not healthy either.
Exactly, and it looks to me like an oil slick in the sky. And I want to tell people that I build all my own computers, all my desktop computers that I've ever used in my business. I built myself. It's cheaper, it's easier to maintain, and I clean them every 6 months or more. And always, when you clean them out, you just have this dust. I use canned air, and dust blows out of the way, and I have air filters going, and it cleans air, and everything's fine. Ever since the spraying started, from that very year, no longer did we have much free-flying dust in these computers. The dust that began accumulating was this dark, sticky, oily type substance, and you can't blow it away. You have to wipe it, and it's sticky and oily, and it's completely different than anything I'd ever seen in the decade or more that I was building computers before the spraying started. So this is the stuff that's going in our lungs, whatever is in it. I know I did an air dust test where I took the dust from one of my air filters and sent it to a lab, and they found, among other things, mercury, 0.3 micrograms of mercury in the dust sample. And now there's other people finding mercury in dust, and I'm wondering, what are they putting in this stuff that makes the oil slicks in the sky? And a lot of people are finding that they have oily films on their windshields as well. So it's like, what is this that's descending on us? I can tell you, as someone who can smell and taste it, that there are a number of different things. One of them smells and tastes like acetone, and that's usually what causes those halos around the sun and the colors in the sky. The people who can smell and taste it, it's kind of like acetone. But we got another caller. But Ty, go ahead and finish up. Say what you want to say. Let's hear what you have to do.
Okay. I've got two more important things. Observations that I made. A lot of times we'll see a jet that's flying super, super low, maybe like 5,000 feet, and I always kind of scratch my head and you'll see all these trails going back and forth, and all of a sudden you'll see a jet flying really low, lower than what the trails were. Well, I took some pictures of a really low flying jet yesterday, came to the conclusion that and I seen one the other day, and I took a picture of it, and then it's elevating. So it dawned on me that I think what they're doing is they're doing the aerosols, then they're dropping the elevation to get back to where they're going, so they don't fly back through it. Because what's going to happen is they're actually going to leave a trail through the aerosols, which will really be obvious that that's not vapor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, people. This is one thing I've been trying to educate people. I've been a sky watcher since I was a child. I used to collect pictures of jets. I've watched the sky travel the United States, flown the United States. And I've never seen a trail come out of a high bypass turbofan engine. And all of these large jets use high bypass turbofans. Even the old 707s that originally had low bypass turbofans have now all been retrofitted with high bypass turbofans. And over 80% of the air that goes through these are not even processed. They don't even go through the combustion process. Furthermore, you have all kinds of other engines and other, like helicopter engines, use turbines as well. Yet you see helicopters blowing out all kinds of moisture.
One thing I was going to say, Russ,
yeah.
I think fundamentally people just don't take the time to watch the sky enough. I'm the same way. I have a large telescope at home, and I used to notice the chemtrails going right across in front of the moon, and that's real difficult to miss because we keep the telescope set up all night, and it tracks the moon or tracks Saturn or tracks Jupiter, whatever. But bottom line is we would see the chemtrails in front of the moon, but if you spend enough hours watching the grid patterns form every day, and you notice that it takes literally hours for these trails to dissipate. And again, the studies have already been done. This is not commercial jet traffic. I've got pictures over on my Facebook page. They look like a perfect grid, like a checkerboard. And those trails, and I've actually done documentation of that on YouTube videos of how many hours it takes these trails to dissipate. And water vapor should not take hours and hours to dissipate. And then you take a perfectly blue sky and turn it to milky haze almost every single day.
Yeah. Well, I would also add to that they are turning the trails from long to short to hide them from the public. I lived in Jamestown, New York. I saw this happen. They sprayed us incessantly for a few years, and then all of a sudden, in 4 days, they stopped spraying. On the fifth day, they started spraying, but all of the trails were short. The smells, the taste, and the intensity and the scheduling were all exactly the same, but the trails were all short. Then I moved to Bangor, Maine, just a couple of years later, specifically to get away from the intense spraying. They did the same thing there. They started really, really spraying hard the summer after I moved there. I'm not saying they did it because of me. It's just because they're covering more and more areas as they get more equipment manufactured and in place, I believe, is what's probably happening. And after a couple of years of intense spraying, overnight, all the trails went from long to short, and they started spraying at higher altitudes, so they were much harder to see from the ground. So these short trails had the same smell, the same taste, the same scheduling, but they were short, non-persistent, except about 4 to 6 days out of the month. Now, if that wasn't enough, just in the last 5 weeks, and I talked about this before on the show, I'm now in Philadelphia, and they did the same thing. I moved here about 7 months ago, and it was a war zone every single day that you looked up in the sky. Absolutely terrifying war zone. You'd think we'd be at war with all the trails that covered the sky. All of a sudden, about 5 weeks ago, it all stopped. Now, 6 out of 7 days you go outside, you don't see trails. You have to stand out there and you can see them at very high altitudes, spewing very short trails. The smells, the taste, the scheduling are the same, but the trails are all short. And what mainstream media is trying to teach you that these short, non-persistent trails are condensation trails. I submit to everyone who's listening to the show that they're upgrading their equipment to produce only short trails to keep this out of the public eye.
That's one of that source that I have within government that I've been communicating with. He admitted that the work that Dane is doing and the work that we're all doing together is going to make the military have to change their tactics. And I mean, this guy literally is the father of geoengineering. For those that would question whether they're even, geoengineering or spraying us, period, he actually used a term in one of our conversations called air pharmacology. Air pharmacology. And you can think about that on your own and draw your own conclusions. But bottom line, at one point I wanted to make before we get down with the show, when you run into people that say, well, you're not saying, and they don't believe that the government's benevolent. They would never spray their citizens. Well, how about the fact that they've been putting sodium fluoride in the water, an insecticide? I mean, literally, I have a picture of sodium fluoride insecticide by McKesson Chemical Company. And now you can't, they've pretty much scrubbed the internet clear of those type of images where you could say, hey, you're drinking insecticide, for gosh sakes. That and the GMO, the fact that we're eating food that's sprayed with Roundup, it's really sad. The
Greg,
vaccine's filled with thimerosal and mercury. And, no doubt we're being depopulated. No doubt we're being weakened. And Mary Lou and I often, I don't know if I've ever said this on the air with you guys, but Mary Lou and I joke that when they come around for the guns, it's going to be, honey, you know, you're in bed, you're sick with the flu, you feel like heck, and here comes the SWAT team. And Mary Lou and I joke, you know, honey, get them the guns as long as they'll sign this piece of paper that says they won't shut off the cable TV. As long as I can keep my cable and, you know, keep my Budweiser, and if you would, grab me a Budweiser on the way back in from the garage. But, you know, we laugh about that, but sadly we're being sickened and weakened in so many different ways because we are the last bastion of freedom in the world. And we better hang on to that freedom, and we better guard it, the public jewel. And it's very sad the myriad of ways we're being poisoned. So for those people that, you know, in your family that say, well, the government wouldn't do that. Well, would the government put sodium fluoride in your water and try to convince you that it's good for your teeth? Would the government spray your food with Roundup? That you don't even want to have glyphosate in your house, period, as Russell Blaylock clearly states in his videos on YouTube. Respected neurosurgeon Russell Blaylock, that is. Do you want thimerosal in your vaccines and mercury? Your kids shot up with mercury. People are wising up to all these different things, and it is a big connect the dots. And there are a myriad of ways we're being sickened and poisoned so that we can have world government and world banking. That's what it's all about. You have to destroy this country. They're doing a heck of a job of it.
That's exactly.
Hey guys, I have one more point. I know we're in a hurry, but I've got one more point that I wanted to discuss. Just real quick, I wanted to summarize about the low-flying planes, if that makes sense to y'all. You know, they do. They get their disbursement, they put their grid up, they get what they're supposed to get done, but then when they go back, they have to drop altitude, because if they fly back through it, they'll leave an obvious trail through it, because, you know, it obviously is not going through paper. So I just wanted to summarize that and make sure y'all got that. My last point that I wanted to make, social media. I'm not going to say what, I'm not going to say who, and y'all know exactly, especially Russ, will know exactly what I'm talking about. There's been this troll on social media sites. I've been reading everything that's been said this week. It's a lot more than a vendetta. Russ, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
What? Who are? Say that again.
On the social media site. You know, there's a guy that's trying to imitate you. You know, putting pictures up.
Yeah, I've been harassed a lot this last week.
Yeah, well,
they're imitating. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've been following it, and you know, this is obviously a lot more than a vendetta. You know, you have some people that don't have a life, that all they want to do is paste photos and yada, yada, yada. Well, this certain entity, I mean, if you read everything that's been written and all the time that's been spent, this is not somebody with a vendetta. This is somebody that is, you know, a lot deeper than just somebody on the social media that's trying to prove points. And, you know, you have these other people that are pasting the same photos. You had another person that said, you know, to go blank yourself or whatever. That got taken off. But it's amazing that you have all these people that are so hateful, you know, and then when you read into it a little bit more, you can see, wait a minute, this isn't a vendetta at all. These people are, you know, and
they're being paid, Ty. They're literally being paid as teams to have them attack my videos.
It's obvious. It's obvious, and then you have another person that comes on there and talks and says, well, we think that this is the same person that was, you know, targeting Mr. Wigington, and all of a sudden that person comes on and says, oh no, it's not me. So, you know, I mean, does that make sense? That, you know, the person that they said that they thought it was appears, and
yeah, it does make sense. And in fact, I will tell you that I had a guest on my talk show last year who had a military friend. They were in the military together, and they have a retirement party every year. And his friend, this guy's friend, was hired back by the military as a contractor to have manage a room of 200 people who sit in there and make up fake Facebook accounts, fake websites, and they impersonate and harass people. I listened to the show where you
talked about that.
Right, and they make up and they harass people. And this is paid by your tax dollars. This is a military contractor. And the guy called me to tell me about what his friend was doing because he was absolutely disgusted that his friend would sell his country out after serving in the military. Whether or not you serve in the military, you shouldn't sell your country out, but would do this to the murdering, the damaging, the killing of life on this planet to confuse and confound the public about the poison that is being sprayed. That's exactly what they do, and they're being paid to do this. So these disinformation campaigns are absolutely real, and they're being paid for by government money.
And there's no doubt how much, there's no question that there's obvious brainwashing techniques being used, Russ and Ty. I mean, my own brother, I've mentioned him before, fighter pilot in the U.S. Navy, flew the F-18, flew drones more recently, so we've had some very interesting conversations as to whether the military would drone American citizens. He really couldn't even answer that question, which in itself is an answer, but bottom line is, you know, I've mentioned this before, I think on the July 26th show, that his statement several years ago was, we need to respect Obama, and we need to respect the presidency, and I have no problem with respecting the presidency, but our high-level military is being brainwashed, and there is a purge surge. It appears that the acid test question is, would you obey orders to disarm the American people, and over 200 top-level brass have been relieved of duty because they would not go along with this tyranny. And sadly, the wheels are going to come off this machine, I have a feeling, sooner as opposed to later, and we do have a very limited amount of time to try to make tracks and try to reach critical mass.
The programs are meant to be ramped up, and, you know, it's already super obvious. I mean, if they're ramped up, you know, if they become twice as much what they are right now, there's going to be no way of sweeping the elephant under the rug. Because the more stuff that you see in the sky, the more people are going to do it. That's not the blue is up there.
Yeah, the bottom line, the bottom line, and I want to respond to what you said about Greg, is respecting the presidency means having a president that respects the presidency.
And the Constitution.
Yes. It's
not a GD piece of paper, as one of our former presidents stated on the Republican side.
Yeah,
and I ran as a Republican.
Yeah, the disinformationalists are I think, in part, at least in part, brainwashed because they hold a job like that. You have to either have no conscience to be a sociopath, or you have to be brainwashed that you're doing something good. And I had a guest on that I talked to that was a musician. He actually worked for, he actually played in the officers' club. He was a musician. He would mingle with the officers. And he was very clear to me. He said, these people, he talked to them about geoengineering, they all know about it, but they all think that it's happening to protect the world from global warming. So they all think it's some wonderful, beneficent thing. At least that's what they were telling him. Now, we do have another caller on that your phone number ends in 85. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Jennifer in Michigan. How are you doing?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer. We just talked last night, didn't we?
Yes, we sure did. And my Facebook's been getting kind of hammered, too. And
good. That's a good sign. That means you're moving in the right direction.
Well, I'm a planner.
Enjoy it.
And, yeah, right?
Enjoy it until it drives you crazy.
I'm there. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a single mom, and I don't have a lot of access to social events and interacting with people at this point because my daughter's so young. So I've been doing a lot of things online. And I'm going to tell you that I firmly believe knowledge is power. But the only thing that really woke me up was when my daughter was born and someone planted a seed about looking into vaccinations. When I looked into those and found that there was a lot of questionable things going on, it led me into the fluoride in the water and then next to the GMOs. Well, when the bubble burst for me is when I realized and remembered my father telling someone that he was on the phone with that the government killed him through Agent Orange when he was in Vietnam. He was dying of cancer when I was 13. When that memory came back, my denial broke. I had the trust in our government and in these agencies like the FDA and all the stuff that a lot of people have, and it's blind trust at this point. So what I've been doing and looking into what can I do, I have to do something. And I noticed going on some of these, quote, chemtrail sites through Facebook and whatever, I was getting hammered, things were getting deleted. But it occurred to me we have to reach people where they're at. And when I started thinking about it, going, okay, there's parents that care about the fluoride, there's parents that care about GMOs, there are a lot of people working towards those efforts. So what I started to do is get into those groups and start planting seeds about the geoengineering. And just as an example, and I actually got quite a few responses, I said on one of the organic sites, is anybody concerned about the geoengineering and, the solar radiation management programs affecting and contaminating the organic crop? And a lot of people jumped on that. So if you guys have other options for me to reach people besides flyers when I have the opportunity to hand them out, is there anything in addition that you can suggest that somebody like myself can start to do? Because we're going to be cloud covered here in Michigan very shortly, almost every day. It's going to be a lot harder for me to go, oh my God, do you see what's going on? Do you know what this is? And people go, no, I never noticed, and then start a dialogue. When there's cloud cover, you can't see that. I'm going to go into 9 months of not knowing what to do.
That's such a great thing that you're doing, Jennifer, the idea of going on these. That's exactly what I have been harping needs to be done, was that the people that already are aware of Monsanto and the GMO and are already aware of the sodium fluoride and its deleterious, Harvard did the first definitive study, 20-point IQ drop, and causes cancer. That's Harvard. Sodium fluoride in the water. Going to those sites and dropping bombs and planting seeds, if enough people would just do that. Mary Lou does the same thing on a lot of different sites, planting seeds and trying to get people to look at this topic because they have their own topic and they tend to protect that topic. But right. I agree with Dane that it is the most important topic of our time. Although another thing that concerns me is just a false flag attack and martial law, and then probably just basic survival is going to become our priority. But outside of that, and then we do need to be, you and Jennifer, you and I have talked about that, the basic necessities and such to right. try to get ready with water and food, and I hope people are doing that. But outside of that, I do agree that the geoengineering is the number one topic, but we do need to go to these other sites and plant those seeds everywhere because they will sprout. Second Amendment groups too, the NRA and GOA, Gun Owners of America, go to your state gun owners associations. Those people are already aware. They may not be aware of geoengineering, but they're aware.
They also have, I'm disappointed in the lack of, I'm going to use the term loosely, but celebrities or these well-known people that have such access to large groups not getting involved in a lot of these topics. But there is somebody, Marianne Williamson, who was running for Congress this past run. She was talking a lot about the militarization of the police force. And I was glad to see that happen, but I was disappointed because nobody's bringing up geoengineering. And so I got on one of her threads and started throwing the geoengineering in there because I think, first of all, I have too much anxiety to run around and, throw this into a very obvious fashion because I got hit by some trolls really hard a couple weeks ago on the SoCo magazine thread that they were doing, and I couldn't sleep for 2 days until I realized that it was intentional. That it was a tactic that they were doing, not just to try to discredit me and the information I was putting up, and discrediting Dane and all this stuff, but they were also putting that disinformation out there for anybody that was following the thread. And once I realized that, I thought, okay, I've got to take a little bit different of approach, and it seems to be working when I go back and look at the thread. Is there something more that somebody like myself could be doing aside from, pointing up when we can see what we got hammered the last couple of days? Yeah, my anxiety spikes because I feel like I'm under attack.
Yeah, Jennifer, absolutely. We are under attack. I breathe and taste this stuff every day, and I have chronic inflammation from it for the last 9 years of my life. My quality of life has been destroyed, which is why I'm very passionate about this, because no human being, regardless of their position in government or industry or wealth, has the right to destroy another person's body. What's amazing to me is that you can put mercury in a needle and inject it in somebody, and it would be a felony. But if you add some other components to it, suddenly it's okay. And this is the mentality that we live under today. And I also want to commend you, Jennifer, for meeting people with where they're at. I call these entry points. That some people, they don't gravitate toward geoengineering right off the bat, and that's okay. If they don't gravitate, but maybe their vaccination issue is real personal to them, or maybe fracking is a personal, because once, like you said, Jennifer, once people get into one of these subjects, it leads to all the other subjects. It's just a matter of time before they see all of these subjects. And so finding out what people are sensitive to or what they have a place in their heart for, and say, okay, all right, well, let's start there. And before a year is up, you're going to know about all this stuff, because at least you're meeting them where they're at. And
yeah, and that's the sad part, Russ. They enslave the population by crashing the economy, and then they also obviously put high priority on wealth and decadence, which that's just obvious. So we create a entire class of people that either doesn't care or is so nose to the grindstone trying to keep their jobs and trying to put food on the table that they don't have time to do the research. I mean, I thank God that I, was successful in business enough to be able to spend, 8 hours a day researching this stuff for the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, even an idiot would learn something in that amount of time, but it's also a curse because now I feel it keeps me from sleeping at night, as you well know, Russ, and it's a responsibility now to educate as many people as we can, do the right thing, stand up for humanity. It's not about your children. It's not about your children's children. It literally is about the future of humanity now. And that needs to be stressed.
Absolutely. And Jennifer, you asked for some suggestions. We do have other callers we'll get to in just a second, so hang on. Hang on there, callers. But Jennifer, here are some quick suggestions. People listening, please use these creatively because you have a tremendous amount of power. One person can affect tens of thousands of people today through social media, through email marketing, through websites, blogs, and all kinds of things like that. It's amazing how many people you can reach. Just be yourself. If you're going to write articles, if you're going to speak, if you're going to make recordings and post them on the internet, and you're going to appeal to a certain type of people. So don't be shy about it. Don't let the trolls, if the trolls come after you, then be thankful. They have attacked me incessantly. They're making pages on Facebook group that impersonate me right now. This is happening right now. These people are mentally deranged. They have fundamental issues with either their understanding or their fundamental psyche. Whatever the problem is with these people, they need to realize that they are aiding and abetting the largest crime against humanity in human history, and they will be held accountable because everything you do, there's a paper trail, a log, or some kind of trail that leads back to you. So disinformationists think they're going to run free. They're not. They will face justice, and justice for crimes this huge will be huge. Now, Jennifer, here's some ideas. You can go to bookmarking sites online and bookmark geoengineering sites, and those bookmarks get shared among other people who are looking for bookmarks. So some of these bookmarking sites like Delicious, and I can't think of other ones, but look for community bookmarking sites. Share a video with your community. I put this up on the Global Skywatch site because our buddy from Alaska, I believe he brought this up. Go to your local video store, talk to him or her about geoengineering, and give them some videos that they can rent for free. Put them on the desk, and he has a video store up there, and they're just renting these videos for free to people. Great idea. Sign a petition. Okay, a lot of people are doing that. Petitions don't really have much effect on government or industry right at this point, I believe, but they do let people know that there's a lot of other people who care. Organize a protest in your area. It doesn't mean having 10,000 people marching around. What it means is go walk down the street, get a sign. We sell signs, and we don't make any money off it, and I'll share designs with anybody who wants to go make them themselves. Make your own sign. Walk down a busy street and just have a website address on there. Dress up, put on some business wear, put on a casual, just so people can relate to you. And hold up a sign and walk down a busy highway. And this is for anyone who's interested in this.
That's a great point. Another great point, Russ, that this doesn't require that much money. You always hear that, oh, how can I afford to do this? You know, a simple sign. I mean, heck, you could make a sign if you got more time than you've got money. So
that's right. You know, and I'm from Maine, and I noticed a couple of years before I moved, just about the year I moved there, almost all of the radio stations were bought out by Clear Channel. Now, they control the content, but if you can reach the hosts, call into these radio stations and tell them, because they're being sprayed too. And we need to get these people on our side because they do have power and they do have sway with their local radio stations. Another way is you can get thousands and thousands of free flyers printed. What you can do is go to a print shop, and we have an article on this on our website. You can contact me for the details. You can get free flyers printed. Flyers are very powerful. Go to a print shop, and when they run jobs, they often have a piece of paper that's left over. And if they have odd-sized flyers, they can actually run those jobs for free, because otherwise that paper just goes in the recycle bin. And so they get somebody, go to print shops and win the print shops over. They are tremendous asset and can be a big help. And they will be thankful to you, and they will help you. And boy, do they have power with print. You can end up with hundreds of thousands of flyers, and we need those flyers. Put a sign in your front yard. We actually make yard signs that you can put, and we have dozens and dozens of people that have now put signs in their front yard. Put a bumper sticker on your car.
If you're in business, put a 4x8 sign like I did when I ran for Congress on the back of my delivery trucks. And in fact, we need to talk about that, Russ. I want to get one of your designs, and I'll put some 4x8s on the back of my delivery trucks, you know?
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it. Write a letter to the editor. Contact your local air monitoring governmental agency and educate them. Don't ask them. You don't have to ask them questions. Tell them what you're observing, and just tell them that you smell tasted or you believe there's health issues. You can create business cards and leave them on the tables of restaurants when you leave or wherever you go. Leave a little business card with you and say, visit this website before it's too late, and put the website URL. And people will be very curious. What is this about? Leave those little...
Start a group on the Internet getting $5 donations to put up a billboard. It doesn't take one guy to finance a billboard. Get 50 people at $20 a piece. I've negotiated some great discounts with Fairway Billboards right now for this cause, that we're going to put one up next week that says you're being sprayed like a bug with a guy with a gas mask on it. So call people to get $5 contributions. They don't have to give 20, 50, 100, $5.
Absolutely. We have a project right now where a woman is educating and training other people on getting billboards. She's already got 2 billboards up on highways, and she will train you and show you what to do. It's easy. It's not that hard to do at all. And we can work on getting billboards up, and they're raising money for this through websites like GoFundMe. So it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a little bit of time investment. And you can get 2 or 3 people working together, and it hardly takes any time. So contact me if people want this. We had a couple other callers, but they both dropped off. I was going to give them some airtime here real quick. But these are some ideas. In fact, there's more ideas, but I don't want to eat up all the rest of the airtime. But there's a lot we can do to get the word out. Go ahead, Greg.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Jennifer, really, thanks for everything you're doing. I sense your concern through the communication we've had, and you're a great person, and I hope you can wake up other people, and I hope that you can get people to help you wake up other people. That's what we really need, is the pyramidal effect of marketing. It is pyramidal. It works. I lived by that principle for about 25 years, and it worked pretty well for me. So the more people you educate, and those people go out and educate others, and eventually you've reached thousands or hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing. Everybody.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You guys are very helpful and inspiring. Thank you so much.
I urge people to look up Frederick Henry Osborne, who said this quote: "Eugenics goals are most likely to be attained under another name than eugenics." And when you start learning about these people who held high places in government, you'll realize that there are some interesting agendas going on. This is Russ Tanner on behalf of GeoEngineering Watch Radio with Greg Palin. Dane will be back next week with us. Join us every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon at ucy.tv. 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at UCY TV. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Just wanna feel smile.